Hi everybody, and welcome back. I'm really glad you could join me today. I think today what we're going to do something much like our last painting. We're going to do something crisp, something autumnal. We're going to have a nice little sunset. Maybe we'll even put a nice little mountain in there and some flowing water. And while I do that, I'm going to tell some lovely stories. Now, I tend not to pay attention to the comments while I do these videos, but I might look over every so often. If there's something you want to know, feel free to ask. I might not address you directly, but I will, by all means, answer a question if one should happen to be asked. So let me tell you what I've got going on here. We have a 16 by 20 double primed canvas, and we already have a little thin layer of liquid white already attached onto it. And we just took a regular brush and we brushed off the excess because we only want a very thin coat on top of it. So, yeah, let's take a look down at the palette and see what we're working with. We have a wide array of colors on here today. Right here we have some titanium white, some ivory black, some phthalo blue, which will make a beautiful sky, especially when we mix it with a little bit of alizarin crimson. We have sap green, Van Dyke brown, a little bright red or cadmium red, either will do. We have some cadmium orange, some cadmium yellow, and some Indian yellow, just to give that illusion of sunset, or sunrise, depending on how you want to look at it. So, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take our 2-inch brush and think what we'll do. We'll start off with a little bit of Indian yellow and just mix it off to the side. Make sure you load your bristles up. And I think to that we'll add just a little bit of bright red to that. More to the Indian yellow side. We want it to have more of a gold hue to it. And first things first, this is going to be your first big decision. You want to decide where you want your light coming from. And I think we will start right about, well, we can't stop now. We'll start right about there. Just swish it in. You can make some X strokes, you can go side to side, whatever you are most comfortable with. There is no wrong way of doing this. And we're going to have a little bit of water down here, so we'll put a little bit of that in down here as well. Don't cover it all up, though. Add a slight amount of titanium white because I want that to be a little brighter. We want it to have almost a misty look to it. And just blend it out, blend it out. We don't need to worry, we're going to know it's there, and we're just going to paint over it. It's sunsets like this that always gave me hope even on my darkest days. Just sitting there with somebody that you cherished, somebody that you trusted, and just sharing one of those moments with the person that you love the most. I myself, until recently, had such a person, but for whatever reason, it didn't work out with her. I'm sad to say that it broke my heart a little bit. More than a little bit. Okay, we're going to wash our brush. Shake off the excess. And I keep a nice waste basket right over here, just off camera, to shake off the excess. And then we just beat the rest off. But you want to make sure that you have a clean, dry brush when you're going into this. So I'll tell you what, we're going to take a little phthalo blue and we're going to mix in alizarin crimson to that. And you want to be more on the crimson side, otherwise your sky is going to look more green. But we want it to be nice and dark. We want it to have that vibrance to it. And we're going to start up at the top, and we're going to work our way down. So we'll start in the corners. And you don't want to cover all of that white up. Maybe a little bit more blue to that. There we go. That's nice. And I tell you, this sort of painting technique will exercise your forearms and your wrists. If you feel them starting to cramp, push through it. It is perfectly okay. And we're going to have water down here, so what we'll do, we'll just put a little down there as well. We just want it to be dark. Maybe we'll even add a little small amount of ivory black to that, just to darken it up a little bit. And we can even just move upwards with it. You don't need to worry about it. It's perfectly fine. But you always want to move across after you make those strokes, just to get rid of those brush marks. Add a little bit more phthalo blue, and I think maybe we'll even add just a very small amount of Van Dyke brown into that, just to mute it a little bit. But we're going for something that's somewhat unnatural looking. Something that you would see out of a fantasy novel, for example. And we'll take a little bit more of that Van Dyke brown, and we'll just swirl it in. Just swirl it in and mute it down a little bit. These are the sort of sunsets you see in the middle of a field, in the middle of nowhere. The sort of sunset you want to share with someone. And like I was telling everyone before, until recently I had that someone, but life finds a way of messing things up. And that's a shame too, because I actually did have genuine affection for her. But what can you do? You cannot tell somebody's heart what they need to feel. And I'm making peace with that. We're going to clean our brush again. Shake off the excess. With that clean, dry brush, what we're going to do, we're just going to blend this out a little. Now, if you had a soft-haired brush, like a bunny brush, something actually similar to this kind of a brush right here, this one is kind of soft still. So, just for the sake of it, I'll show you what we do. We take this soft brush right over here, and just very gently with the corner of the brush, we just go around the sides. And you want to make sure that you wipe that kind of a brush off frequently, but for the sake of it, we'll go back to our almighty 2-inch brush. And you just want to softly blend all that together. switch to a 1-inch brush. I already have a little bit of liquid white on this already. So what we're going to do, we're going to take some titanium white, and we're going to go back over here into some Indian yellow, just to give it a little bit of a gold flavor to it. And we're going to take our cadmium yellow, just to lighten it up, because humanity, for all of its art, has not been able to find the right way of creating colors for light. We can only create the illusion of it. And I think what we'll do, we'll have it a little bit higher up, so we'll go right here. We'll just blend that out a little bit. And we'll put it down here too. And don't worry, we'll take a palette knife and we'll put in a couple of little shimmering lines, just to indicate that there's some water, maybe it's blowing around. Take a little bit more titanium white. There we go. And we'll wash this brush off now. But it seems like a bland sky, so why don't we put some nice little clouds in there? We'll take a fan brush to do that. And I think what we're gonna do, we're gonna have some nice red clouds. So we'll take some alizarin crimson. Maybe we'll even put just a very, very small amount of sap green in there, because we want it to have a little bit of a brown hue to it, but we want it more on the red side of things. But if you want it to have whatever color you want, it is your world. In this canvas, in this world, you are the creator, and you can do whatever you want on that canvas. If you want a green sky, that is your right. This is as close as you get to God, or being one at least. So we'll load our bristles up, and we'll just dance it around. And we're using mainly the corner of the brush more than anything. And the further away from the light you go, the darker you want it to be. So you can add things like midnight black, ivory black, a little Van Dyke brown. You want some dark colors in there. You can even add some phthalo blue so that it balances everything out. But every now and then, you know, you don't necessarily need to have a cumulus cloud like this. Maybe you just want a little streamer going through there. And that's perfectly fine. You can do that too. You can do anything you set your mind to. I'm gonna add a little bit of ivory black into that. And we'll go back and highlight these later. Let that brush spin around while you do this. That gives it a little extra flavor to it. Add a little bit of phthalo blue. We'll even use some of that background color, that phthalo blue and alizarin crimson that we mixed together. That's perfectly fine. That'll give it a little spark. cover everything up, though. Don't want to cover that entire sky that we have going on. Tell you what, before we add any highlights to what we have, why don't we blend them out just a little bit? We will take our 2-inch brush, and just with the corner of the brush, just some gentle swirls, just to mix it all together. Gently, we'll just go over it, just to blend it all together. We'll even fluff them a little bit. We'll stroke upwards. But you barely want to be touching the canvas when you do that. Barely touching it. 2 hairs and some air, and it blends it all together nicely. We'll just put the excess over that. And we'll take a little titanium white, very small amount, and some cadmium yellow, again, very small, more white than yellow. And what we'll do, we'll add just the faintest little bit of highlights to these clouds. Now remember, if your sun is here, you're going to have a little bit on top. Just right over here. And on this one, we'll also have it on the top. But on some that are a little further away, what we'll do, we'll put them on the bottom. Just tap them in. We'll blend them out later. And remember, if your paint has a little trouble sticking, just add a little bit of paint thinner to it. Our golden rule, a thin paint will always stick to a thick paint. That's nice. All right, we'll blend that out. Just wash our brush first. Take our 2-inch. Better yet, no. We'll take our very small blending brush. It's very soft, makes good use of blending. But the same principle, just the corner of the brush. We don't want to eliminate it all, but we want it to be a little softer. And I'm just gently tapping with the corner of the brush. And then we'll just gently go over it with our 2-inch brush. And just like that, we have a very neat looking sky. So, what else should we do to this? You know what? Feeling ambitious. Let's put a nice little mountain in here. Very small, very far off in the distance. So what we'll do, we'll take some phthalo blue, some ivory black, maybe even a little alizarin crimson, why not? We'll mix that all together. I'll just cut a little ribbon off on the edge of our knife, just like that. And always be thinking shape and form, form and shape. Before I do that, actually, I just thought of something. Maybe we want some rays of sunlight coming out of there. That would be nice, wouldn't it? So we'll take a little ribbon of cad yellow and some titanium white. And we'll load our fan brush up. And just like this, push, pull. Push, pull. Just like that. You see, it almost looks like you have light coming right out of those clouds. And we'll just quickly blend that. We'll even pull it a little bit more out. There we go. Okay, back to our mountain. Let's say we want it right here. Oh no, we're covering our sky up. That's perfectly okay. We know it's back there. And I'm pressing very firmly into this canvas. The canvas can take it. Take your aggressions out on it. That's perfectly okay. The canvas can take it. And what we're doing, we're just scraping the excess off. We want it to be a very thin layer of paint. Enough so that you can see what's underneath, but not enough that after we smooth everything out, that it won't turn to mud when we're mixing it, because we don't want that. So we'll take our 2-inch brush, like so, and we'll just pull the excess off a little bit more. Just the corner of the brush, drag and pull. And don't worry about down here. We want it to have that misty look to it. As a matter of fact, if you want it to have even more of a misty, just tap the bottom. Tap the bottom. It's a good way of getting a little more paint off and to create the illusion of mist. Wash the brush off. There we are. And I don't think this one's going to be very snowy of a mountain, so I think we'll have just bare rock to it. So we'll take some titanium white and a little bit of ivory black. We'll make a nice little gray color. And you don't want to mix it fully. You want to be able to have a little bit of marbling to it. And just cut a small little ribbon across. And I think if the light is coming this way, what we'll do, barely touching the canvas, just follow the shape that you carved out. Barely touching. Always dreamed of going to mountains like this. Was never able to find anybody to travel. Of course, I myself never really liked traveling all that much. But at one point, I actually did have somebody who was willing to do the traveling, but well, the virus decided to make different plans. It is a shame. And if it blends together, don't worry. That'll just give you some nice shadowy effect to it. That's something that takes a lot of time to do on your own. So if it just happens to occur, don't worry about it. That's good. This is a very quick method of painting. You see how the paint is starting to break? That's what we want. That's the way we want it. Maybe we'll have a little peak right over here that's been hidden in there. Don't blend it out too much, though, otherwise you lose the effect that we have. And it'll blend with all the color that you had underneath, which is perfectly fine, but don't kill all the dark areas. Because we want to have these light areas show up. And in order to do that, you have to have some dark underneath. You have to have a little bit of dark to show the light. Just like in life, in order to appreciate all the good times that you have, you gotta have some dark times. Let's mix up a little bit of a shadow color. So we'll take some more of our titanium white and a very, very, very small amount of phthalo blue, just to give it a little flavor. And maybe we'll even add another small amount of ivory black into it. But we want it to be a little on the shadowy side, darker than this, but also bright enough that it stands out from the rest. So we want it more on the blue side to indicate reflected light. And if you happen to get any of the background color that we mixed into your shadow color, that is perfectly okay. Because that indicates that the light that we have back here is reflecting in the rock that we are building right here. And just like we did over here, maybe we'll make that a little darker. And phthalo blue is a very powerful blue. It'll eat up your entire sky, it'll eat up your entire mountain if you're not careful. That's better. But remember, just a little bit on the edge of your knife and barely touch your canvas. We'll use the back of the knife for these small areas right here. And if you want, you can just put a little bit here and there, just to indicate some nice little peaks and valleys that we have in there. Tell you what, let's get a little brave. Let's add a little bit of that light that we have coming from that sun. So what we'll do, we'll take a little bit of that yellow that we worked with and some titanium white, and just here and there with the back of the knife, maybe we have a little bit here and there. Just right on top. There we are. And just for a little added effect, why don't we take pure titanium white? Just a very small amount. And just a little bit, just to make it pop a little bit more. Just like that. There we go. Whisper to it, talk to it, enchant it, woo your painting just like you would your partner, your husband, your wife, whatever your preference is. Whisper to your canvas, entice it, woo it. And, yes. And I think what we will do next, we'll take some sap green, and we will take some alizarin crimson, and we'll make a very beautiful brown color. Just need a little bit more alizarin crimson. I tend to go through alizarin crimson fairly quickly. It's a very beautiful color. It doesn't go a long way though. So, and we want to put it roughly about equal parts. But I want it a little more towards the red side of things, because it'll give that nice silhouette effect. Yeah, there we go. That's looking very nice. Very nice indeed. And to that, maybe a small touch of phthalo blue. And with the corner of the brush, we got some distant trees forming. Make sure you always load your brush back up. That's the most important thing. And don't space them like that, because then you'll have just fence posts, some telephone poles in the distance. We don't want that. We want a lush forest appearing. Don't worry if it's fading over. We're just using this to cover some things. And we'll go back over later, and we'll add a couple of little details to it. But these are so far off in the distance that you can't really make many details out of them. But I'll tell you what, maybe a few of them, maybe like right here, for example, we'll say. Maybe we got one who got a lot of sunlight. Maybe he's got a friend who did the same thing. He ate his Wheaties. But we can't leave that side over there left out. So, looking very nice. I think we need a little bit more color over here. colors. So we're going to take a little bit of that background color that we did, and we're just going to go right into it. A little bit more phthalo blue into that. We're just going to fire right into it. And just blend it out. Blend it out, because we want this to be nice and soft looking. We want that to be able to have that nice translucent water effect to it. And we'll clean our brush in between, because we don't want to muddle it up too much. Just go back over it very softly. Very softly. There we go. And I'll tell you what, we'll take a little bit more of that color that we made these lovely little trees with and just reflect them into the water. Maybe we want them a little bit more darker in the water, so we'll add a little bit of ivory black into that mixture. Basically what I'm doing is I'm taking the corner of the brush, tapping and just dragging down a little, very slightly. And in between I'm just loading the brush back up. There we are. And we'll take our 2-inch brush, and right about where we think the shoreline is going to go, we'll just drag it down from there, just like that. Just gently pull down. Right across. Just like that. There we are. The excess off. And what we'll do, we will take our knife and we'll take a little bit of Van Dyke brown. And we'll take a little bit of that tree mixture. And what we're going to do, we're just going to put a little shoreline in there, far off in the distance. Barely visible, but we know it's there. couple little water lines in there. So we'll take some liquid white and a little small amount of Indian yellow to give it that gold hue to it. That's what we're looking for because we got the sunlight bouncing around in there. And right there, right there. Just start on the shoreline. And just cut in a straight line back and forth, just like that. These canvases are tough, they can take it. And because we have the sunlight back here and over here, we don't want to have that gold right over there. We can add like straight white to it, but right here is where it's really going to pop. Just here and there, just there, wherever you want, but you want it to be able to balance itself. So I think over here, we'll just have it a little on the dark side. We'll just take a very small amount of that liquid white, very small amount, we'll just go through the shaded areas. Just like that. And we'll blend it out. There we are. Just like that. You know what? Maybe these little fellas over here need some tree trunks. So, just with the corner of your knife, very edge, just scrape. Maybe there's some nice birch trees. Maybe there's some nice poplar trees. I know we got a couple of pines in there. But here and there, just the faintest indication of some nice tree trunks. They're too far away to be getting a lot of detail with, so we're just going to show very small amount. And because we have that liquid white underneath, it'll show up just by giving it that nice little scrape. And another way of doing that is you just take your fan brush, put a little bit of white on it, and just swipe upwards. That'd be a nice way of doing it. I recommend doing that for something much more into the night. It shows up a lot better than simply putting white onto this. This way, the knife is much more effective, and you'll be saving a lot of time. So, what else do we want to put in here? You know what? I am thinking that maybe we have a nice little landmass forming. So we'll take some of our dark colors. We'll take Van Dyke Brown, we'll take Ivory Black, we'll take some alizarin Crimson, and some Phthalo Blue. We don't need to worry about what it's going to look like because it's going to be covered up and it's going to be highlighted. We just want something dark so that our light colors will show up. And we'll just take our knife and I'm thinking right about there. Just drag it across. Load it up. Maybe it's a nice little river going through here, so we don't have to go all the way out. But maybe we have a nice little patch that we can just stand on and look at this. So we'll put it right there. But I'll tell you what, we definitely need something on this side. So I think what we'll do, we'll take that same color and we'll put a nice little boulder in there. Ordinarily, when I was studying psychology many years ago, I often told my, I guess you could call them, clients. I wasn't a practicing therapist, I'll say that. I was just a student. Never finished my training. But they would always say that they had these fantastic dreams. Scenes in the middle of nowhere, just living their lives. Back then I used to tell them, don't dwell on your dreams, make them a reality. I myself have been having some strange dreams as of late. I won't mention names, but I guess you could say I'm not coping as well as I thought I was, but who amongst us does? The best ones are always a little broken. But we use it well, don't we? But I still say, do not dwell on your dreams. It does no good to dwell on a dream. Make it a reality. There we go. And we'll make some nice highlights to go on here. I think what we'll do, we'll take some titanium white, some Van Dyke brown, and some alizarin crimson, just to start. Definitely want more on the brown. There we go. And let's see, we got the light coming from here. Beautiful. That looks absolutely stunning. So, what we'll do, we gotta give it a little bit of a shadow. So, what we'll do, I think we will take some of that phthalo blue and white and we'll add a faint amount of our bright red. Give it a little bit of a purple hue. It'll also make it nice and dark. Give a reflected light to it. And to that we'll add a very small amount of Van Dyke brown and some ivory black. Why not? We need it to be a very shadowy color. And we'll even use the back of the knife because it's a lot smaller. We don't want to overload it. We want to be able to have that nice dark underneath to show through. say that this is a nice little river going through. We need to give it some nice splashing. So we'll take that liquid white and we'll mix it with a little bit of that phthalo blue, and what we'll do, just with the corner of the brush, just splash it around. Just gently tap it around the rock. Maybe we want a little bit more white to that. And you can easily do some nice upstrokes to it. More of that liquid white, and just cut in a waterline here and there. And don't be afraid to blend it out. There are certain areas where the shadow is going to make it a little darker, so you want to blend it out a little bit more. Maybe we'll even take our filbert brush, if I can get it. There it is. And maybe we'll take a little bit of that white and blue and a little small amount of that yellow. Thin down, maybe it's crashing a little. Scrub it in. Scrub it in. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to let it bleed out a little bit. We got a nice little wave hitting the rock. That's what we want to look for. Okay. We'll take a 1-inch brush, and I think. What do I think? I'll keep my mouth shut on that one, because what I think could get me in trouble sometimes. We will take a little bit of that nice dark color that we made for this landmass right here. We're going to drag our brush through it. We want to load the bristles. Maybe we'll even add a little bit more to it. The idea is that we want to twist our brush through it, and we want to have that nice little rounded end to it. And we're going to keep that end upwards, and maybe we have a nice little tree starting to form here. And this little guy, well, this big guy I should say, we're going to add some highlights to, because it's closer to us. We can make those details out now. And if you're painting along at home, this is something that's totally optional. You could leave it just as it was and maybe just put a couple little highlights down on the ground. It's your world, you can do as you please. But I think it needs a little something else, something happy. Although it doesn't really look quite happy now. When we add some nice little highlights to it, it'll look beautiful. There we go. We'll wash our brush off. And we'll shake off the excess. And what we'll do, we'll take a little bit of that liquid white, just a small amount, just to thin our paint. And what we'll do, we'll run it through some cadmium yellow, even a little Indian yellow. Oh, why not a little bright red, here and there and here, and some sap green. And we're going to twist it through, load those bristles up beautifully, nice and thick. And just here and there, just like that, we've got thousands, maybe even millions of leaves forming. But we don't want to cover it all up. What we want to do is to be able to think of shape and form. I say this all the time, shape and form, form and shape. We want to be able to have somewhat of an idea of what we're looking for. So just here and there. I'll tell you what, before we add any more, we'll take our knife and we'll give it a little tree trunk. Now don't worry about that. We're going to cover it up soon. Got a little bit of that extra sap green in there. Gives it a nice dark color. Sets it apart from the rest. But we're not done. We're going to go back and add a little bit of yellow, and we're going to add a little bit of red into it, just to give it that indication of the light hitting the branches. But we'll get there, one thing at a time. Don't be in a rush. If you rush this, it won't work. I'll tell you what, right about here, we'll just kind of mash it in a little bit. Maybe we've got a nice bush growing in front there. And I'll tell you what, maybe it's got some nice leaves starting to dry out. And while we have that red on the brush, just here and there, maybe it's got a, maybe this is fall. Maybe the leaves are starting to dry out. They're starting to fall down. So maybe what we're seeing here is the tree is starting to get cold. It's starting to shed. It's outside. The leaves are starting to turn. There we go. We'll clean the brush now. Shake off the excess. Dry it off nicely. You don't want to be able to go back on there with a load of thinner, because then it'll just run. Everything will melt right in front of you. Take a little bit more of that liquid white, and we'll run it through some cadmium yellow. And here and there and here. Not too much though, just with the corner of the brush. Will indicate where that sun is hitting the leaves. And I think what we'll do, we'll take our 2-inch brush and we'll go through that nice little leaf color we made. Maybe add a little bit more of that lovely Indian yellow we had on there. And maybe a little bit more sap green. There we go. Still looking a little dark though. So I think what I'll do, take a little bit of that cadmium yellow. There we go. Just to give it a little sparkle. Not too much though, because there's some of this that's not in that sunlight. We want this to be a little on the darker side, much like my sense of humor. Looking pretty good. You know what? I think these rocks need a little bit of that sunlight. So let me just wash this brush. Take our small knife and we'll take a little bit of that sun color, and I think just here and there, right on the peaks. Don't need much of it. We just want to be able to indicate that that sun is shining through and hitting those rocks, making them nice and happy. And just touch it right onto the canvas. The canvas will take what it wants, just like the tax man. Let's see here. Give a couple of little take our liner brush, a little bit of liquid white instead of paint thinner. We'll run it through our Van Dyke brown. And maybe we've got some little reeds forming right over here. Maybe got a couple in the water somewhere. maybe a couple little straggling branches. Maybe we got a couple coming out right there. And we'll just go right out there. Tap a couple little leaves on there. And I'll tell you what, I'd say we have a finished painting. So we all know the rule. There's one left thing to do, sign it. So we'll go into a little bit of paint thinner and go through our bright red. And remember, your name is going to be going on your painting. Practice your signature too. Make it something that sets yourself apart from everyone else. I think we'll sign right down here. And always add that little copyright symbol. There we go. And we have a finished painting, all signed and ready to go. I want to take the time to thank everybody for stopping in, and if those of you who have donated, I'll give you a shout out later on. I do appreciate it if you did, if you even shared this video, even better. I will have it uploaded to YouTube soon, hopefully. I gotta figure it out. Technology was never my strong suit. But I want to thank everybody for stopping in, talking, listening to my tones, and I hope that you actually found this to be calming and soothing in whatever way that you have felt even listening to my stories. Lord knows I am full of stories, and some of them a little better than others, some of them not so cute, I guess we could say. But I want to thank you for stopping in. So until next time, I want to wish you happy painting, and God bless, my friend.